What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the Hands-On channel. Today we're out here in my rabbitry again. I wanted to talk to you guys about something that's really important. Backyard livestock. Which backyard livestock animal is best for like a suburban homestead type setup, right? Most of these animals are not going to work very well in a city application, but if you're out in the suburbs, you know, you have a half acre or an acre of land or whatever, even less than that, to be honest with you, you could get away with a lot of these different animals and be able to put meat straight on your table, or eggs, or whatever you're after, right? So I wanted to talk to you about that. I have three different types of animals here. We have chickens, quail, and rabbits. And I want to share some of my experiences with those and just what my thoughts are as far as daily care and stuff like that. Which one's the easiest to take care of, which one tastes the best, which one puts the most meat on the table. So let's get into this. I think this is going to be beneficial for a lot of you guys, especially people that are prepping. And maybe you've stocked up a whole bunch of canned food and a whole bunch of water and all kinds of stuff, but you just feel like you're not quite there to that level of, you know, what we're all seeking is a level of comfort, you know? I mean, here's the deal. I read a whole lot of different survival stories and tales and different things, you know, whether they're true or fictional or whatever, but one of the ones that stands out in my mind more than any other survival story is the Donner Party. The story where people were so darn hungry they had to resort to cannibalism just to survive, or many of them, the survivors, did. And others that refused to go to those, you know, methods, they perished and they starved to death. And there are other things that, you know, these things can happen suddenly without warning to even an economy as what seems to be as strong as ours, right? So that's one of the things I'm looking out for, is a sudden disruption in the supply chain or the food supply system, right, where suddenly people are starving, or you can't afford food anymore because it's just too expensive for normal people to be able to purchase this food, right? So this is one of the reasons that we have all three of these different varieties of animals here in our backyard. And I'll tell you straight up front, they're all pretty much about the same as far as taking care of them. I mean, you have to provide them with shelter, you know, protect them from rain, direct winds and stuff like that in the wintertime. You want to give them plenty of airflow in the summertime. You have to keep their coops clean to a degree. You know, you have to go underneath and clean them out, scoop them out. Like, I don't know if you guys can see it here, but there's a pile of rabbit, you know, pellets right over here behind me. That I'm going to have to spread out around my yard and my property, or otherwise, if it's concentrated, it will start to smell. But just up front here, I left everything a little bit dirty today because I was actually getting ready to clean all my coops out and my rabbit hutches and all this stuff, but I wanted you guys to see it before I cleaned it out, so you'll have a real idea of what it's going to be like to have this kind of livestock in your backyard. You know, a lot of people might think, oh, well, the smell is going to drive me nuts, right? I'm not going to be able to take the smell because it's going to smell like a barnyard outside my back porch. That's not necessarily the case. Again, if you practice good animal husbandry and stewardship, and you're cleaning up after your animals, right? And you're keeping the cages clean, you're keeping the litter from building up too much underneath, you'll smell virtually nothing, right? I mean, it's almost odorless. Especially the rabbits. In fact, I would say the rabbits actually win as far as least smelly animal. Believe it or not, the most smelly animal is the quail. The tiniest package packs the biggest wallop for some reason, but the quail, actually, I have to move them around quite a bit, or their manure will build up quite a bit of a smell. So if you're worried about that sort of thing, this is what we're going to talk about here in this video. And, you know, the chickens are middle of the road. They smell a little bit, but they're not as smelly as the quail, but they can build up a little bit of smell. But again, all of that has to do with your maintenance. How much are you tending to them? How much are you cleaning them out? I usually go about once every, let's say 7 to 10 days, just depending on what the weather's doing and what time of the year it is. Sometimes I can go as long as 2 weeks, but that's pushing it. Things will start getting smelly after about 2 weeks, but you're going to need to pay them attention and make sure they have clean, dry coops and hutches and stuff like that if you're going to have livestock. And you have to make sure and put food and water down every day, or have a system that, you know, will automatically water and feed them for multiple days if you want to do that. I prefer the everyday method, and the reason why is I want to actually lay eyes on my animals every single day and make sure no one's hurt, no one's been fighting with anyone else or anything like that, because you'd be surprised at how often, when you're not paying attention, how often something bad can happen. I'll give you guys an example. I was going through my routine about a week or two ago of taking care of all the animals, and I got to the quail cage, and I noticed 2 of the quail had a whole bunch of feathers missing off of their face. And I'm like, oh no, they've been fighting. Well, I got a closer look at one of them, and its eyeball had almost been pecked out. Miraculously or whatever, it appears that it has healed up, but I kind of have my doubts of whether or not that eye is actually functional or not. But the thing healed up in like a week. I couldn't believe it. But the other quail, we have these like Tennessee, I can't remember what variety they are, but they're little brown quail, and they're known for being aggressive and mean towards other Coturnix quail, right? And somehow or another, we ended up getting a batch. We didn't know what all we had in there. We were wanting jumbo Coturnix quail only, but we ended up with a couple of Bob White mixes and a couple of these Tennessee, I can't remember what they're called, Tennessee something quail. And they're mean, and so they're the ones that were picking on my Coturnix and biting their faces off. And if I hadn't have been checking those on a daily basis and visually inspecting everyone, well, it could have, they could have killed them or made it to where their injuries just couldn't be recovered from. So that's the importance, I think, of going out on a daily basis, whether you do a larger automated type water system or whatever. You still should go lay eyes on your animals every single day. Or if you're not able to do that, maybe you're on vacation or something, you need to have somebody else come by and, pay them, one of the neighbor kids or something like that, pay them a little money to come over and take care of your animals while you're gone, and make sure that someone puts eyes on them every day, because it can happen very quickly. But obviously, if you're going to get into backyard livestock, chickens is probably going to be your gateway livestock animal, right? Because that's what most people do, including myself. I got into chickens first. I didn't have rabbits or quail in the beginning. So about 15, maybe even 20 years ago now, it's been such a long time, we got our first flock of about 6, I think it was 6 Americana hens. I'm trying to remember. I think they were all Americana, 100% Americana. And I bought them from like the farm feed store, right? I just went down to the feed store, and this time of the year in the spring, they'll have their bins, of a big metal bin with some heat lamps and a whole bunch of chicks down there. And I took my daughter down. It was a really great experience for her. We picked out the chicks, we brought them home, we raised them in a little Tupperware Rubbermaid thing inside the house with heat lamps, and I gave that responsibility of taking care of them on a daily basis to my daughter, although I was overlooking and making sure that she was doing the right things and everything, keeping up with everything. But I put that on her as an exercise in building up levels of accountability and responsibility, and she loved it. She just loved checking on those peeps every day. So this is a great thing to do if you have children. It teaches them about, the facts of life. I don't want to go as far as say the birds and bees, but it certainly teaches them about the life cycle of different animals and, how to care for something. I think that's really important. But with chickens, obviously you're going to have the potential for eggs, for sure. You're going to definitely be getting eggs, but you also have, with dual purpose birds, you have the potential for meat production as well. Now, we have dual purpose birds now. I have a mixture of Americanas and Rhode Island Reds, and we're really happy with both those varieties. The Rhode Island Reds put off kind of a brownish, I'd say a brownish egg, and the Americanas are what they call like Easter eggers. They put off multiple color different eggs. I've got a white bird that puts off pink eggs. I've got 2 gray birds that put off kind of a bluish, greenish tinge egg, and that they're always delicious. We do have a rooster. So I would warn you or advise you, if you're going to get into backyard chickens as a first timer, do not get a rooster. And if you end up with a rooster, get rid of the rooster. Whether you grow it out to fryer size and cook it up, fry it up yourself, or you just give it away or sell it or whatever you have to do, get rid of the rooster, because for first time flock handlers and backyard livestock owners, you're going to need it to be as simple as possible. And hens are really easy to take care of. Roosters, not so much. They can be aggressive. They can attack you. They can attack your dog. In fact, quick little funny story. my previous dog, the best dog I ever had in the whole world, Ranger the Ridgeback. He was half Rhodesian Ridgeback. He was a great dog. Just the kindest dog you'd ever meet, right? Almost wouldn't harm a fly. And my rooster, Russell Crowe, we had this like quintessential, we had two roosters. We had Russell Crowe and Harry. And we call Harry because he has feathers on his feet. But Russell Crowe, he just crowed all the time. So we named him Russell Crowe. And he was a beautiful, I mean, quintessential American rooster, right? He was like Rhode Island Red, Americana, Australop mix or something like that. He just had a beautiful color pattern to him. He was a great rooster. A little bit lighter bodied than Harry. And so we thought he would be the perfect one to continue our breeding program and, you know, grow out new, hatch out new eggs. That was our plan. But anyway, Russell Crowe ended up dying. But before he died, he would come across the yard, no matter where he was. He would come all the way across the yard and chase down my Rhodesian Ridgeback and run him from one end of the yard to the other. And my Ridgeback would just be looking up at me like, do something, man. This chicken is kicking my butt. Do something. And I'd have to go out there and wrangle my dog, get him away from the rooster. And the rooster was so aggressive and so fixated on attacking my dog that even if I got in the way, he would jump on me too, you know. And I've got a couple of scars on my shins where he went in there through the jeans. I had thick jeans on, but he spurred me hard enough that it left scars on my legs. I mean, so it's a serious deal. Those roosters can be really aggressive, so I advise you no roosters to start with. Just get hens. You'll have a much easier time and it'll be a lot more fun. Quail. Obviously, you can get eggs and meat out of quail, so they're dual purpose. And as far as I know, every variety is dual purpose, but you're going to want to get larger varieties. So we tried to get the jumbo Coturnix quail, although we got a mixture of a couple of different ones that were undesirable to us. We have eaten some of the quail, and they are delicious. It's the easiest animal to clean. You really don't even need any tools, to be honest with you, although if you're going to use tools, I'd recommend like a good pair of really good heavy-duty industrial style scissors or something like that, like some Fiskars or something, where you can make nice clean cuts through the leg bones and different things like that. But yeah, they're really easy to clean, man. I mean, I could probably clean a quail in 5 minutes, and I'm not some expert on it, but it's very simple. Dispatching them is very simple. It puts meat on the table very quickly, much quicker than rabbits, although albeit a lot less meat, so you'd have to clean a lot more quail to get the same amount of meat, but it's delicious. It's very good. It's a fattier meat than rabbit. So one of the things that happened to the Donner Party was they had what they called rabbit starvation, where they were getting plenty of rabbits, but rabbits don't have enough fat on them to keep the human body sustained through, especially through hardcore winter circumstances like they were facing. So you don't want to ever get into a situation where your belly's full of meat, but you don't have enough fat to keep you alive. You can still starve that way. That's the point. And that's a thing, rabbit starvation. So that's one of the reasons that we have quail and chicken in our mix here, is so that if we had to, we'd be able to get some good fat to keep us alive, because fat's what's going to get you through the winter. But yeah, quail, eggs, and meat. If you've never eaten quail eggs, I'll tell you they taste exactly the same as chicken eggs. The only caveat that I'll say is they're a little harder to deal with. For me, chicken eggs are super easy. I can crack an egg one-handed without getting any shell in my pan or whatever, but the quail eggs are a little more crumbly. And you really need the special quail egg scissors. My wife bought a couple of sets of those, and they're just like a scissor on one side, but they have a ring on the other side. And that ring is what you put the egg in, and you can clip them. I've never done it. My wife's always done it, and she doesn't seem to have a problem with them, but I'm a little more annoyed by it. I want instant results, so I kind of prefer when I'm cooking eggs or something, I'll cook with the chicken eggs and kind of avoid the quail eggs. Save those for my wife, who knows what she's doing with them. But they do, when she cooks them up for me, whether scrambled or fried, you can't tell a difference. The only thing is they look different. Some people might not mind that, but they do look different, obviously. They're much smaller, so when you see fried quail egg, it's going to look a lot different. If that bothers you, if your food has to look a certain way, that may not be, that may not be cool for you. You may not like that. So that's up to you. But what I like about the quail is they're dual purpose. you can get eggs and meat out of them, you know. And you can also pretty easily, if you have the right kind of incubator, you can pretty easily incubate more and continue your flock. I really like that. Rabbits, obviously you're going to get meat, you're going to get fur if you want fur. You can make all sorts of things. And, you know, imagine a post-collapse scenario where clothing is hard to come by. People may start looking to older ways of making clothing. So if you have a whole bunch of rabbit fur, maybe you could make blankets or, you know, a jacket, or depending on what your sewing skills are and your, you know, crafting skills, you may be able to make things out of that and sell it to other people or trade it to other people, right? But also, one of the most important things, if you garden, you want rabbits. And the reason why is their fertilizer is black gold for your garden. I mean, instantly ready to use. You don't have to wait for it to cool down because it's too hot like chicken manure or like cow manure. Rabbit fertilizer can go straight onto your garden. It's ready to use right out of the rabbit's backside. So I love that. It's one of the best fertilizers there is. I mean, we've noticed a huge difference from just the last few years since we've had rabbits in our garden. The soil is much darker. I mean, everything is just better when you have rabbits providing fertilizer. You could probably maybe sell some of that fertilizer or give it away to your gardening buddies if you end up getting too much of it. We've got 1.5 acres here, so there's never such a thing as too much of it. I can just spread it out across my property when I get to having too much in my garden, right? So also I put it in my compost bin. I don't know if you guys can, no, you probably can't see that, but I've got a compost bin back there. It's really close to my rabbit hutches, so it's really easy to scoop that in there, and it helps add nutrients to other things that I'm putting in. You know, it would also be a great thing if you're into biochar and stuff like that, and I'm just really scratching the surface on that, but I really like the idea of the what's that, terra preta or something like that, the land they found down in the Amazon, that they scratched the surface and they realized that this was all really dark black soil, and they were trying to figure out what happened, and they figured out like the Aztecs or the Incas or somebody had been burning in a hole and then throwing dirt over the top of it, and that created, you know, biochar, and that biochar can actually hold those nutrients in. So again, I think the rabbits are the ultimate gardener's friend, symbiotic relationship between, you know, you can feed them some things out of the garden and that helps give them nutrients, but also they're feeding the garden directly. You don't have to wait for it to compost. I mean, it's brilliant. So if you're into gardening, I would say rabbits should be high on your priority list. And also, you can get meat from them. You know, some people keep them for pets and stuff. If you want to do that, I'm not going to judge you. You could just, you know, feed them and water them and take the fertilizer and put that into your garden. But personally, I like to eat meat and I don't want to starve. So that's the reason that right now, you're not seeing all of them, but I have like 13 rabbits right now. That's probably about 10 too many. But the reason we're keeping them and hanging on to them is that some of these does over here, we're probably going to put them into our breeding program. I'd like to at least have 3 does and 1 buck. This is my buck back here, Pete, and he gets his own bachelor pad and everything, gets to kind of live the good life over here. And as you can see, he's got some branches and some leaves in there. So for me to answer the question, which livestock animal is best, it's going to really be determinant on what you want to do with it. If you just want eggs, chickens are the best. If you just want meat, rabbits are probably the best. If you want meat and eggs, quail may be the best, or chickens may be the best. You know, just depending on what you plan to get out of this thing, right? Or what you're doing. If you're a gardener, rabbits may be the best. So depending on your individual circumstances is going to determine which animal is going to be best or which one you should start out with first. These are just my opinions based on my experiences. So I can't really say. It's a toss-up to me which animal is best as far as chickens and rabbits. If I had to eliminate one animal off of my property here and I wasn't going to take care of it, it would be quail. And mainly because of some of the reasons I've already said. While they are the easiest to take care of, they're a little, you know, when they're really young, they're more difficult. They're not as resilient as baby chickens, right? Baby chickens are a little more resilient. You have to keep the quail in the house a lot longer. At least that's my experience. They smell really bad. you have to move them around quite a bit. And there's really no way to get rid of the droppings. They just have to kind of dissipate on their own. So I would advise you, if you're going to have quail, more than about a dozen of them in one cage or whatever, you need to make sure and move that thing around quite often, and hose it down with some water every now and then just to help it absorb into the ground. Also one other thing, if you have a dog that likes to roll around in smelly stuff, it's going to go straight out to the quail manure and roll around in that. It's going to eat quail manure, like our new dog Chloe. We can't keep her out of the manure. And I did a little research on that. They claim that that's a predatory offensive mechanism, so that the predator will go and roll around in something that it wants to eat or it wants to blend in with. It wants to make itself smell like that animal's waste, so that whenever the dog is creeping around, they don't get alerted. I mean, it's really quite brilliant, but it's not the greatest thing in the world if you're trying to have a dog that comes in your house and wants to cuddle with you and give you kisses and stuff, right? I mean, that's gross when you see your dog eating manure. So, it's a little bit difficult, but if I had to eliminate one animal or one group of animals here on my property, it would be the quail, just because of those reasons right there. They smell bad. On the scale of how much do they provide for us, it's the least amount. They provide the smallest eggs, the least amount of eggs. When you clean them, it's the least amount of meat because of their size. Obviously, rabbits are going to be the most. They produce like rabbits, they breed like rabbits. So if you know how to take care of them when they're young, you'll be able to put lots of rabbit meat on the table, almost unlimited amounts of rabbit meat on the table, assuming you have enough hutches to keep them in while they're growing out. And they don't take very long. A lot of people start slaughtering their rabbits at like 12 to 14 weeks. They call those fryers. They're real tender, they're real young. They're not full size. They're not super big at that point. So if you want larger size rabbits, you're going to have to wait and let them grow out, and those are going to be like roasters or broilers. You're going to have to cook them a lot slower so that the meat doesn't taste tough or feel tough to your taste. So anyway, ease of care, it's kind of a toss-up. They're all kind of about the same. I would say the chickens are kind of messy. I have to clean out their nesting boxes quite often. That's a little bit of an annoyance to have to clean out the chicken nesting boxes. They like to get up there at night and they feel safe in there, so therefore they defecate inside of that nesting box, which is gross because that's where the eggs go, right? You don't want your eggs covered with chicken crap, so you have to constantly stay on top of that. It's a little annoying. Noise, definitely the chickens are the loudest because I have a rooster. If I didn't have a rooster, I would say that the quail and the chickens are about the same. You can hear this male quail over here calling right now, every now and then. Let's talk about pen requirements. Again, it's very similar. It's just the construction of the pen is going to be a little bit different for each different animal, but they're all going to need some sort of, caging material on the outside that mainly protects them from predators, that want to eat them. But also keeps them in and allows their poop to fall through, right? You don't want the poop hanging around on top of the cage floor. That's just gross. Your animals will get dirtier that way. Pen requirements, I would say that probably the chickens is the most difficult because you have to build the largest enclosure for them, especially if you're going to let them free range. And I'll take you around here in a minute and I'll show you some of our coops and our hutches and stuff, and you can maybe get some ideas from that. Heat and cold tolerance. They're mostly about the same. I would say that the quail, just because of their size, are probably the most susceptible to cold. We simply put an incandescent bulb in there, although it's getting harder and harder to find those regular incandescent bulbs because the Biden administration has banned them. And I don't know what the conditions are, but it's harder and harder to find them. And when you do find them, a lot of times it's because the store is closing out on that item and not carrying it anymore. So I'd say hold on to those incandescent bulbs as long as you can and as tight as you can, because it's going to be hard to come by in the future. And then you'll have to buy a heat lamp, which I don't really like the idea of, because a heat lamp uses a lot more electricity and it produces so much heat that you could actually potentially start fires with it. So I prefer the good old incandescent bulbs, but again, I may not be able to get them in the future. I also use one of those bulbs in the well house, and at least in my climate, I've never had our well freeze up, knock on wood. So far so good with just a 60-watt incandescent bulb. So I don't want a heat lamp when I don't need one, federal government. Why don't you get out of my light socket? How about that? Anyway, mini rant concluded. I promise. I'm sure it'll come up again. But anyway, heat and cold tolerance. We've got a variety of, ours are what they call Texas A&M or Tamuk and New Zealand rabbits. So we've got a mixture, and the reason we've got this mixture is the Tamuks are supposed to be very high heat tolerance along with the New Zealands. I live in a hot climate here. It's hot. We have, hotter summers, then we have colder winters, if that makes any sense. It's pretty mild in the winter here. Although we do get some really cold temperatures, it's usually not for very long, not more than a couple of weeks. And then, so I'm more concerned about the heat and my animals surviving in the heat. If you live in a different climate, then you may have to look at a different variety. Some of the other rabbits are a lot more cold tolerant than these New Zealand Tamuk mixes that I have. But just depending on your location is going to determine what kind of rabbits are going to be best for you and what kind of chickens, because some of the chickens will have a lot more plumage or feathers, right, than other varieties. So they'll be better in a colder climate. And also, the way you build your coop is going to be a lot different in a warm climate versus a cold climate. So just keep that in mind when you're watching videos on how to build the perfect coop. Again, perfection is very subjective. It's going to depend on where you are, what kind of temperatures you have, things like that. So for me to say what is the best homestead animal is actually impossible, because it's going to depend on your circumstances, your conditions, what kind of backyard do you have, what kind of other animals do you already have. But let's move on. This is a really important one. We touched on it a moment ago, but the fun factor. And I think especially if you have young children, the fun factor is just off the charts with chickens. I mean, they win, winner take all. Chicken's number one, the most fun animal. They're fun to watch do their little antics. They eat June bugs, they eat ticks, they eat all kinds of bugs off your ground. Of course, you got to watch out. If you have a garden, they'll come over and peck one of your tomatoes. Not eat the whole thing, just peck it. Just enough to where it ruins it for you. So you have to keep them out of certain areas. You have to keep them contained, but they're a lot of fun to watch. Kids love them. Kids love watching them, playing with them, petting them. Although, even if you pet a chicken every day, they're never going to really like it, because chickens, they just want to be doing their own thing and scratching and stuff like that. They don't really want to be around humans, so they're not really going to come to you for petting and attention, although they will come to you if you offer them treats. Pieces of breadcrumbs, whatever, oats, like old oatmeal that you're getting rid of because you've let it go too long or the bugs got into it. The chickens love that stuff. So if you give them treats, that will encourage them to come to you almost every time they see you. So that's kind of cool. And I've had many different times with different flocks where suddenly I look back and the whole flock is following me around, especially when we didn't have a rooster. Now, with the rooster, they kind of stick with the rooster more, but I guess at one point or another, they thought I was, cock of the walk, the rooster, right? So they would follow me all around the backyard, and it was pretty darn cute. You'd look back and there'd be a whole trail of hens following you around, scratching and clucking and stuff like that. So if you're into that sort of stuff, I think chickens take the cake. They're the best, the most fun animal you can have. Even though they don't do a whole lot, the things that they do are hilarious. I mean, they're pretty funny. And even with the rooster, it's pretty entertaining to watch him do his little mating ritual where he dances around on one leg and kind of does his mating ritual. It's just really interesting, and I think it's good for kids. Number two would be rabbits, because they're fun to pet. They're a lot of fun. You can get in here and pet them and, and talk to them and different things, although they don't really do much. And, I don't know. To me, they're livestock. I don't really treat my rabbits as pets. I treat them as livestock, so that when the day comes that I have to call them, I'm not going, little Fluffy, oh no, I don't want to kill you, right? So I try to, even though we've named a few of them, we don't name them all. We name this guy Pete because he's our number one producing buck here. I'm not going to get rid of him. He's not ever going to go onto the dinner plate. So, or at least until he's so old that he can't breed anymore, right? So, we've got him and we've got 2 does that we've named, but otherwise all these other ones have no name because, you know, they're going to be on the dinner plate or in the stew pot one of these days. And I have eaten several older rabbits, a couple of them really old. And as long as you slow cook them in a crock pot or something, you know, for 3 or 4 hours, that meat's going to fall right off the bone. You just have to spend more time in your preparation when you get an older rabbit. So don't let that worry you. If you miss your window of opportunity to cull them as fryers, you can always turn them into broilers or roasters, and you're going to have good quality meat. The taste of the meat. Now, I can only speak to the taste of the meat of 2 of these animals. We have never so far culled any of our chickens, even though they are dual purpose birds. And in fact, long story somewhat short, at the beginning of the spring here, I was planning on culling my current flock that I have now because egg production had dropped off to almost nothing over the winter. And I'm not the kind of guy that's just going to keep putting food down for an animal that's not producing or pulling its weight. So we were getting ready to cull, and then all of a sudden I moved them out to the summertime coop where they have a lot more sunlight and access to grass and scratching and all this stuff. And boom, they started producing at the same levels they did when they were young. So it's amazing. I'm getting like on average 4 or 5 eggs a day out of 5 hens. So that's pretty impressive. Of course, once in a while you'll have a day where you only get 1 egg or something like that. But on average, I'm getting a high volume of eggs for birds that are like 4.5 years old. So I'm really surprised. The plan was to cull them this year because of their age and the lack of egg production. But I guess we'll have to, you know, they'll get a stay of execution at least until the fall. I may cull them in the fall just so I don't have to take care of chickens over the winter, and then I'll start again in the spring or something like that. So you have to kind of plan some of this stuff out to fit with your life. But the taste of the meat, the rabbit meat is delicious. I'm going to give the edge to the quail. I just love quail meat. It's delicious, man. We've culled about 6 of them, and we need to cull some more. But it's just delicious. It's so easy to clean them. I'll just give you the quick rundown of how it goes. You grab the quail, the body of the bird, let's say in your left hand. You grab the head with the thumb and the forefinger here, and you pop their head right off. It comes right off. A little blood spurts out, and then you don't even really need knives or any kind of tools other than your hands. You just reach into the skin here on the breastbone, and you kind of pull it apart like this using your thumbs as kind of a lever, and you can rip it right down the middle and then skin them, turn them inside out, and gut them. It's easy. It's as easy as it comes. It's easier than cleaning a fish. So if you've ever cleaned a fish, you know what I'm talking about. Hopefully most of you have. But I'm telling you, I could clean a quail quicker than I could clean a crappie. And I've been cleaning crappie for quite a long time, or a bass or any other freshwater fish, right? I can clean a quail quicker. That's telling you something there. So for your backyard homestead animals, if you know there may be a time in the future when you need a quick meal right then. I mean, the quail, it's ready to go, man. I mean, you could have them, you know, most people like to let their meat rest for a day before they eat it, but you don't have to. You could eat the quail that night and it would be just fine. And when I say that, if you don't know what I'm talking about, some people will, like with rabbits, it's really important, and probably with chickens as well. You put them in like a bath of water in your fridge, and you let them rest or cure for a day or 2 or 3 before you cook them and eat them. It just makes the meat taste better. The right kind of enzymes are releasing and all that stuff. It helps it to be more tender and delicious. So these are all things you're going to need to learn if you're going to be setting up your own backyard livestock meat and egg production facility. I highly advise you guys do it because the time is now. You know, I mean, I'm not going to go into all the depth, but we all see the economy is really, really bad. I mean, you just can't keep spending money like they've been doing it and just giving our money away to foreign countries and not expect some of that to come back on us. So it's coming back on us in the form of inflation, or, you know, rising interest rates, or the fact that a lot of younger people can't even afford to buy homes today. I mean, and the rise in homelessness, and, you know, the open borders and people just flooding in our nation. We've got so many problems that, in my opinion, only lead to one place: complete collapse. And I don't want to starve. I don't want to starve. I've read too many survival horror stories of people that weren't prepared enough and they starved to death. If you have your own backyard meat production facility and enough feed, you have to figure out a way to store the feed, because instead of, storing canned goods and things like that, now you're going to be storing chicken, rabbit, quail feed. And what I found is if you can find these 55-gallon drums that haven't had toxic chemicals in them, that have the ring lid, the metal ones with their big ring lid that seals down, that you can bolt down, that is one of the ultimate ways to store your feed. Keep rats and mice and other insects off of your feed, because they have a seal and you can tighten it down with a bolt. So that's what I do with mine. I've actually only got one right now. I'd like to have 2 or 3 55-gallon drums with all of my different rabbit, chicken, and quail feed in there. And it'd be great if I could have them separated, where I've got, okay, this one's just chicken feed. And when I say that, I'm putting them in the bags. I'm not just dumping the feed into the barrel. I've got them in the feed bags inside of these barrels. And I could fit like 1, 2, 3. I could probably fit 4 or 5 of the big feed bags. I'm not sure if they're 50 pounds or what they are, but they're big. The big feed bags, I could fit 4 or 5 of those in each one. So my plan is to get 2 or 3 more of those. That way I could store up a whole bunch more feed. That way, when SHTF does come, I'll be ahead of the game. I'll be able to keep my livestock alive longer than other people around me. Therefore, I'll be able to eat, I'll be able to barter, I'll be able to survive. And not only that, maybe even thrive when others are starving to death. So some things to think about, guys. I'm going to take you around quickly here and show you our setup, and maybe this will give you some ideas of things you can do there in your backyard. But I highly encourage it. It's a whole lot of fun. It gives you peace of mind when you put your head on the pillow at night that you've got food, a food production facility. No matter how small it is, you've got food production capability in your own backyard. It's very empowering. I highly recommend it. We'll go around here and take a look at some of our hutches. As you can see, this one here is one I rehabbed, and it came from our land we bought. If you don't know, we've got 100 acres of land that we're trying to develop, but it's been pretty difficult with the economy the way it is. I made these 2 cages here. Those are all wire cages, and I made this big stand out of a bunch of scrap pallet wood that I had. And right now I've got 3 does in there. I've got this one here is Beatrice. Hey Bee. Hey Beatrice. And she's friendly for the most part. She'll let you pet her on the head. I don't think any of them really like, human contact that much, especially the does. They seem to always run over to the other corner. And this one here, when it's breeding time or after she's been bred, she will get a little aggressive. So especially towards my wife, for some reason, she gets a little aggressive and she'll actually growl a little bit. My wife wanted to cull her, but I talked her out of it, because this one here, B, produces our biggest litters. We had a litter. How big was that? I mean, it was like 8 or 10 kits in one litter. It was unbelievable. This one here produces larger bodied rabbits, and actually there's 2 of them in there. One of her kits is living with her, and it's getting hard to tell them apart. The one way I can really tell is one of them is super duper shy. Okay, it's that one. That one over there is her offspring, and she just does not like being touched at all. You can just tell she freezes up. And this one is Mama Cass. She's friendly. She don't mind. She's one of our breeders, and she produces big-bodied offspring. So it puts a lot more meat on the table as far as, per rabbit, you get a lot more production. We keep a tile in there, and you can see a little pea back there on that tile. It's kind of gross, but we keep a tile on there for the summertime. That way they can get on that cool tile and cool off. And you can see it's got a wire floor. We've got some maple inside of there. They can't eat every single kind of tree branch there is. So you need to be careful about that and do your own research and make sure that you don't feed them something that's poisonous to them. But they can eat maple. They can eat elm. They can eat mulberry. There's lots of different things. Little tree limbs. This is a little buck here, and we haven't named him, but he's super friendly. I mean, again, they kind of all do the same thing. They kind of all ball up and go back into the corner. But one of the signs that they're halfway friendly is if they come out and smell your hand, that means they're at least interested or open to it. But yeah, he's friendly enough. He would be a good breeding buck. So we may end up selling him as a trio or giving him away or something, because I really hate to eat him. He seems like a friendly little buck. But I am getting mighty hungry. Here's a couple of does. I'm not going to open up both of them, but here's a couple of does. This one here is another one that's real skittish, so I wouldn't want to keep her around. See how she's jumping all around? This wouldn't be a good one for my breeding program, because she's just too scared of human touch. And so that one's going to be ending up in a stew pot pretty soon. And I know some of you guys may be like, oh my God, he's so mean. Why is he doing this? But this is the way of the world, man. We need to get back to this. This girl here, I'm not going to open it up because my chair's in the way, but she's really friendly. She would make for a good breeding doe. We may keep her around. I don't know. She may end up being the replacement for Beatrice over here if my wife talks me into culling her. But yeah, this is basically our setup here. And as you can see, we've got all of our raised flower beds are back there. Sorry about that. It's a little bit hard to shoot into this lighting here when you have shadow and sunlight like that. It's difficult to get your camera settings right, but hopefully you get the idea. As you can see, we have water, and we have these J feeders, J style feeders on every one, where we just put some rabbit feed down there every day, and they seem to be pretty happy. They like chewing on these limbs and stuff. It gives them something to do, and it keeps their teeth from getting, out of shape or whatever, getting too big, because apparently that can happen. But yeah, it's a really good symbiotic relationship to have your garden beds nearby where you're keeping your rabbits. And another thing we're doing here, play with this light again, I've got these old filing cabinet drawers. And what I do is I try to strategically place them where the rabbits are pooping the most. And then I can catch those and move those around my yard. And over here, you can see, I really need to scoop that out. It's getting to be a lot. And the rabbit manure, again, the manure itself doesn't stink really at all. It really has no smell to it. Out of all the poop I've ever dealt with, it's the least smelly. The problem comes with their urine. If you allow the poop to sit there, they'll eventually pee on that poop, and then it'll soak up that urine smell, and their urine is very pungent. I highly advise you, if you're going to have rabbits, don't put them on concrete floors, because that urine just has no place to go. It's better if it's out here in the dirt, and then you scoop this out, you take it over to your garden, or you spread it around your yard, and you don't let it build up like that. That's too much. That's about 2 weeks worth right there. So I'm behind. I'm going to have to get out here and clean all of this up. And I want to show you one other thing that's annoying about this rabbit right here, B. She's the only one that does this. Her poops are so big that they won't go through the wire. It's like 1/2 inch hardware cloth or whatever, and it will not fall through. She's the only rabbit that we have that's like that. And I don't know why she's that way, why her poops are so sticky, but they just never go through. And we have to spend a lot more time cleaning this one than we do the other one. So again, that's another strike against her. She may end up in the stew pot before it's all over, especially if my wife has her way. Okay, so this is my rabbit tractor. It's basically just again, it's another one of these rehabbed structures that I got off the property. And right now I've got 2 bucks in there. I had 3 bucks in there, but they started fighting. So if you're going to have multiple bucks, it's probably best for each one of them to have their own bachelor pad, because I think the bucks tend to fight more. These two seem to be okay, and they get along okay. But what I do basically is I just move this thing around every day. So when I come out here to feed, I grab that rope handle that I made there, and I just drag that. Now, it may not be apparent from the video, but I do have cage floor down there on the bottom, so they can't dig out. If it was just open on the bottom, those rabbits would dig out in short order. But this works out really well. It really was just kind of a temporary, permanent solution that kind of came about because I had these cages and I had these tarps. I did some repairs, made a little door, and I'm in a rabbit business there. So I mean, it's working out for me for my grow out cages. It's not ideal. if I would have made it, I would have just made it a little better. I'd have put a permanent roof on top of it, you know, rather than having to change the tarps out a couple of times a year. But it's working, you know, and I've actually got 2 of these setups. This one has 2 bucks in it. I've got another one down closer to the back porch of my house, and it has 4 does in it. So these are all the offspring from last summer's breeding program, and we got so far behind we couldn't cull them fast enough. So those of you guys that follow the channel, here's my quail cage. You've probably seen this before. I made this about 2 years ago, I'm guessing, and I called it like the ultimate Coturnix quail cage or something like that, and I stand by that. It's working really well. You can see the ground down below. It kind of kills the grass. The quail manure is so hot that where it comes down, it kills the grass, but not permanently, you know, just for like a week or 2. And once a couple of rains come on, that'll come back. But that's why I've got it on wheels, is so that I can move this thing around and it won't just kill one spot. And also that smell won't be concentrated in one spot like that. But yeah, this works out really well for us. Really, no, I don't think I have anything that I would have changed about this design. It seems to work really well. Need more light now. There we go. I think I've got 4 in this cage, and one of those over there, there's 3 of them right there. That's that Tennessee one I was talking about right there. Kind of a more reddish color. There's the other one. And they're bullies to the Coturnix quail. The Coturnix have the more striped face and stuff right there. And right there, that's a Coturnix. Those 2 are like Tennessee something or other. I can't remember the name, but they're mean. And so watch out for that. They're probably okay if you just had that variety, but they're not very nice to the other Coturnix. And then that forced us to move these 2 up here in this old rabbit cage. So yeah, we had to move these 2 up into this old rabbit cage just temporarily. These are the ones that I said, you know, had a lot of their feathers taken off their face. So I've got 2 more. These are my breeders in here in this cage. And these are all the offspring of those other ones, the breeder. Just for checking our eggs daily and stuff like that. We come in here, and a lot of times you'll find something like that, a little quail egg. And you'll see I've got some old cut up feed bags that I put in here. And basically when it starts getting too gross, I just pull that out and I scrape out all the manure. But again, I don't usually let them get this dirty. I just wanted to show you guys, this is what it's like on cleaning day. So yeah, you just check your eggs like this. It's really convenient and easy. Oh, there's one there too. Awesome. But again, if that's all you got, that's not going to fill your belly up. So you're going to need something else. You need some rabbit to go along with that or something. So, but yeah, our quail cage has been working out great for us. I keep the feed and everything down below here. And some extra accessories, scoopers and different things to scrape them out. But yeah, it's worked out really well for us. Oh, with that spring rain, man. And also the manure, because we've been putting rabbit manure down here for quite a while. All these plants are just really green and lush, and my wife's roses look better than they've ever looked. And again, it's going to take you a year or 2 of just mixing in your rabbit manure and other manures before you're going to get these kinds of results, but it's well worth it. So let's take you over here and show you our chicken setup here. It's really pretty simple, pretty thrown together, because I just basically used things. One of this cage here, my neighbor was going to throw that away. I saw him dragging it out, and he was getting a sawzall out, and he was getting ready to cut this thing up, and I'm like, hey, what are you doing with that? He goes, I'm getting ready to cut it up and throw it in the trash can. I'm like, no, I'll take it. If you don't mind, I'll take it. He's like, oh yeah, that saved me the work, you know? So I drug this thing over here, put a tarp on it, stuck a couple of old glass screen doors up there just to kind of give them some extra protection from the rain, but still allow some sun to come through. It's worked out great for us. It's got chicken wire down here. It doesn't go all the way up, but it has chicken wire, you know, the bottom 3 or 4 feet. And it's got chicken wire across the top here, so nothing can get in there. No hawks or anything can get in there. We've got 3 nesting boxes back here that are just made out of some old milk crates that I came up with and cut the sides out of them. It works great. We've got some perches for them to crawl around on at nighttime and get comfortable. But yeah, they can get up in there, and it may not look the best, but they can get protected behind that tarp, even during a big rain or a storm or anything like that. So it's worked out well. This feeder you see over here, that was actually an old dog food feeder at one time. We got it from the land. I rehabbed it, made a little metal top for it so that it would, the rain wouldn't get in it. And now we feed chickens with that. Here's your chicken water. I mean, it's pretty simple. Nothing really hard about it or difficult. It's just a matter of pulling the trigger and getting into it. Well, Harry says you should get into it, so you better listen. Hey, buddy. Hey, buddy. That's our big rooster, Harry. And there's some of his hens back there. Now, one thing you'll notice, hopefully the camera's showing it up here or picking it up, they have dug all the way around my wife's crepe myrtle over here, and she's worried about it because there's roots and stuff being exposed. I told her not to worry about it. I was like, I'll just throw some dirt on it. It'll be fine. But they love taking dust baths so much that yeah, they will dig out around your plants, especially if it's a place where they can find cool, or bugs or anything like that. So just be warned about that, there's some things that people don't tell you about them. One thing that this batch of chickens, I've never had another batch of chickens do this, but this batch of chickens, for some reason, have started picking and pecking on the side of my shop building here. See all that blonde wood? That's all from basically this year, from where they've been pecking on it. There's no bugs. I can't tell why in the world they're doing it, other than the fact that it's just entertaining to them to make the building go thump, 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 and make knocking noises. So I'm gonna have to do something. Eventually the plan is to skin this whole building with metal, but I don't wanna have to do it anytime soon. So I think I'm just gonna go get some little pieces of scrap metal and just lean them up against there to where they can't peck on that. But yeah, I don't know if you can see that trim piece. Yeah, it was a little rotted, but the chickens went in there anywhere it was rotted and pecked it all out. Maybe they're finding little bugs in there or something, but I have yet to see anything like that, so I don't know exactly why they're doing it, but they're doing it. But they're a lot of fun. I really enjoy just watching them do their little things. The rooster walking around crowing all the time. Yeah, it can be a whole lot of fun. So guys, I think I've given you a lot to consider here. I highly recommend that you get into some backyard livestock before it's too late. So I appreciate you guys tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. And until then, we'll see you next time. I knew he'd do it.